What happened in practice?
Charles Leclerc was P1 twice. Thanks for watching. Oh, look. Oh, come on, everybody. Let's put our hands in the air like we just don't care. It is Monaco Grand Prix practice review. Whew. Wow. Is this what happens when dreams come true, Tommy? I don't know, but I know I'm getting far too ahead of myself. Let's get into free practice 1, shall we? Where the top 3 were Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris. Yeah, Leclerc, top of free practice 1. However, it didn't look like it was going to potentially happen, did it, at the beginning? 2 minutes into free practice 1, Charles Leclerc, well, not even, I think it was his first lap out the pits and went down the escape road in that sort of downhill right-hander. And I'm thinking, has it begun already? Is this what 2025 Monaco has in store? And then 8 minutes later, Lance Stroll decides, I'm in time trial. And at the hairpin, lets one car through and then just swipes back onto the racing line. And of course, Charles Leclerc is arriving at that point into the hairpin, loses his front wing. Stroll had massive diffuser damage. And even, I think, Charles Leclerc had to have his floor replaced. And I thought at this point, this isn't going to be a fun weekend.
See people defending Stroll. It's funny how it's always seems to be Stroll doing it and having the collisions with the kind of incidents where awareness and kind of looking in your mirrors and stuff. But of course he was given a penalty, so they deemed it his fault. But of course it was Charles Leclerc that he hit. But luckily for Charles, it did more damage to Stroll than it did for Charles Leclerc himself.
And that is not the only pain that he received, because he also got a one-place penalty.
The classic one place.
For that particular incident. Now, do we think that's fair? For me, I think yes. It's practice. I'm not saying that Lance Stroll is dangerous to society after this particular dart back, but it was his fault and it was careless. And I think it is a fair penalty.
Do they normally give penalties for practice incidents? Probably not blocking, but collisions.
Yeah, I mean collision when it's categorically someone's fault, then it has to be a penalty. But the thing is, we don't tend to see that all that often in practice. Yeah,
no,
we get blocking,
I'm trying to rack my brain of a time where a driver has been essentially got a penalty for an incident that happened in a practice session.
It very rarely happens in practice.
You don't normally see collisions. It's normally close calls, isn't it?
Exactly. So this is a literal collision where a driver was at fault, and I think it's entirely fair. Now we go to free practice 2, where, of course, it is the most representative session, and Charles Leclerc was fastest, ahead of Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton. A massively chaotic 2 practice sessions. Of course, we had that red flag because of the Stroll Leclerc incident. And then we had 2 more red flags in free practice 2. But Charles Leclerc was unfazed and went fastest once again. Let's go to a question from Leclerc1644. I wonder who they support. Why is Charles Leclerc always so quick in Monaco? Even in years where the Ferrari is not competitive, Leclerc is always very quick in Monaco. He's good around street circuits. Let's not forget Baku as well. Baku is a Charles Leclerc stomping ground. So it's not a surprise to see Leclerc great round here, because as much as he's had a lot of bad luck, the reason we've noticed his bad luck is because he's been running in such amazing positions. So I am not surprised to see him up there. I am surprised to be talking about an FP1 and FP2 Leclerc fastest. But he just has confidence around it. You can see it when you're riding on board with him. Other drivers are taking 2 stabs at the wheel into a chicane But Leclerc was quick from the get-go. Even on the hard tyres, the medium tyres, it doesn't matter what he plonked on that Ferrari. He just looked good around here again.
And I don't remember a driver, very few drivers in history, that can deliver this level of performance no matter kind of where the car is when they go to this track. Because looking back through history, I'd argue 2023 is the only year at Ferrari that Charles Leclerc has had where he probably couldn't have won the race. Because his pace was absolutely amazing first year at Ferrari. 2021, had the incident, but unbelievable pace. Shouldn't have been there in the first place on pole position because, they weren't there all season. 2022, last year he won it. It's just so good around there. It's actually incredible to watch as well, because in a practice session normally people rein back a bit, but I don't think you can really in Monaco. You have to kind of push, and if anything, when you rein back is probably where you make mistakes and have lapses of concentration and stuff.
Exactly. So it's looking good. That's all I'll say. A question from people on Patreon member Heather More or Less. Ferrari look good. Where has the pace come from? Well, it's interesting, this one, because they've decided, shall we plonk on the rear wing from last year? Which, of course, it might sound like, oh, they just have no idea what they're doing with this car. It might well also be due to trying to save a bit of money. But either or, what I'm seeing is that we need to get back the rest of the car in 2024.
Time they've put a piece of the 2024 car on. They're first and third.
So and obviously Ferrari, they didn't work at every single track last year, but you best believe I'm asking you to bring back every carbon fibre bodywork bit for Monza after seeing what's gone on so far. But of course, there has to be a working philosophy as well with this Ferrari. Just because you plonk on a rear wing that worked last year doesn't necessarily mean it would work for this year, especially because they've overhauled the car massively. So maybe there is a hybrid version of which Ferrari might win the World Championship.
It's almost like they shouldn't have changed the whole car. But I do think just the nature of Monaco, for whatever reason, the cars have to run a little bit higher. Mercedes are a great example here. That their car, even Alex Albon has questioned the legality of it because it runs so low at some of the tracks. You can't do that here, and it's really showing because they are scraping along the floor.
Who did you say was going to
Sorry,
win?
we just wait. There's still the two-stop masterclass.
Yeah, you think Kimi Antonelli's going to still...
Or Ocon. I'm not sure yet.
Or Ocon. He was 19th in free practice too.
But yeah, Ferrari is just very, very well suited. So I'm looking forward to them having a great Monaco, and then kind of action stations ready for the Monza setup to win that one as well, and then they bag their 2 wins.
And then they bag the non-Ferrari flop of the year as well, because that will not count as a flop, and I know you've been so confident about Tommy. Question from P1 Petro member Hazard. Are the McLarens finally losing pace? No, I don't think so. Tommy just mentioned that of course, the cars are slightly more raised off the ground. There's a lot of bumps around Monaco as well, and that can change slightly the pecking order, like we said coming into this, like we said in our predictions, that Monaco can throw a little spanner in the works to the pecking order. So McLaren are second and fourth. So no, they are not losing pace. I still believe that they will be in the hunt, hopefully for my prediction's sake, finish fourth and fifth. So they look like the second fastest car at the moment. Red Bull look nowhere. Mercedes look nowhere after today, although I will say with Red Bull and Max Verstappen, you can never count them out going into a Saturday. And I'd be fully confident for Max to secure a top 5 in quali at the very least. But no, McLaren, if they're quick round here, they're going to be quick everywhere.
McLaren, they are good at every circuit. We know this. And Monaco, if it was going to be any circuit, a bit like we saw with the Mercedes in years gone by, when they were dominant, they'd come to Monaco, maybe other people could challenge. And it looks like Ferrari are going to be the ones to take that to them this time. But I don't think they'll be the slightest bit concerned or worried with being second and fourth, particularly when Max Verstappen is down in 10th. Of course, it is only practice, but I would be absolutely amazed if Max is in the top 3 in qualifying, but I hope he proves me wrong.
I would say a small saving grace for you, Tommy, to pull you out of this depression, because Ferrari are really quick, and I feel bad to see you in this kind of sad state, is that Tsunoda's 4,000ths of a second behind Max Verstappen, which we've not really seen at all this year. I think he's had the very minute pop-ups in a practice, but Max, in my opinion, is going to have 2-3 tenths on Yuki at the very least. So we will see. Let's move on and actually continue talking about them. James BCFCF1 asks, Racing Bulls quicker than Red Bull this weekend? I mean, the overall pace of the Racing Bulls looked really good. Lawson's had a really, I would say, big confidence builder in this particular practice session, up in 5th, just ahead of his teammate, which we've not really seen. But I think a part of that is the fact that there was a double crash for Hadjar as well. But they can take some saving grace in the fact that they look very quick. 2 inexperienced drivers around Monaco. Yes, there have been mistakes, but you can easily rectify that. And considering Hadjar crashed twice, the overall damage that he actually caused wasn't the biggest that you could have around here.
I'd be surprised if RB continue that. They've kind of done that a lot this year, where they've looked incredibly fast on Friday and maybe baited us a bit. I still think they could have good pace, but yeah, I'd be very surprised if they were 5th and 6th, but you never know. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they did kind of maybe split the Red Bulls in I think, you mentioned that Yuki was very close to Max. He always, kind of struggles, and we've seen that with the second Red Bull driver kind of forever now, that when it kind of comes to the crunch of qualifying, even after a good practice, it just doesn't seem to come together when you kind of have to have all the confidence in the car and you're kind of pushing flat out. Actually,
speaking of crashes, like we were just speaking about Hadjar, of course, Piastri had a crash as well into turn 1. Leclerc had just gone fastest. That's how I remember it, like it happened 2 seconds ago, because of course I was celebrating that. Then the camera pans to Piastri in the wall. Of course, he only lost his front wings, so it wasn't the worst thing again to happen for Piastri. Managed to reverse it out and carry on his merry way, and still popped it in P2 to pop it 38 thousandths behind Leclerc after having those issues. Again, proves who Oscar is as a driver.
I think he's very different in the sense of Lando Norris, that can get in his own head, and Lando wears his heart on his sleeve, doesn't he, and can get in his own head about things, and he's admitted himself that he feels a lot of pressure, whereas Piastri seems very much the opposite, whereas he could go fastest in a session or finish last and would have exactly the same preparation going into the next one.
Next question, people on Patreon member Alan Enderpay. Is this going to be the toughest weekend for the rookies? We've touched upon Hadjar, of course, but also Colapinto's looked like he's been struggling for confidence out there. He's finished last in both Free Practice 1 and Free Practice 2. Quite a way off Gasly, and this is the thing, Gasly's only 17th in FP2, so if Alpine are indeed the slowest car, Colapinto's got no hope in hell to get anywhere near the back, because this is a really tricky track to get up to speed. We've seen Hadjar, of course, he has got up to speed, but he's made mistakes, and perhaps Colapinto's just going, don't make a headline. If I finish last, it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't. It doesn't. Briatore's already said this 5-race deal is a load of rubbish, and that he just wants him to not crash and learn the car and get quicker. So I think for Franco, we just accept Friday, okay, the Alpine's not very good. Let's just finish Monaco, shall we, with no issues.
I guess with Doohan, when they made that decision, they had to put Franco in for a triple header, otherwise it would have been afterwards. You can't kind of put a driver in halfway through a triple header. But what a first 2 races for Franco to come in mid-season, and Imola and Monaco, where I can't think of 2 circuits that punish mistakes more, really. Absolute insane, maybe other than a Baku. And yeah, he's just struggling for pace out there. Hadjar has looked very quick. I think we saw a little bit of the Hadjar that they've spoken about before, actually. Where he can be incredibly self-critical, and he's been praised a lot actually recently that he's kind of not pressed the radio button and shouted a load of expletives and things like that. Something Yuki Tsunoda did, for example, and made a headline of himself. But this time, with a double mistake, he couldn't resist calling himself dumb and things like that. These new drivers are so harsh on themselves, aren't they?
It's mad as well with that whole sort of team radio comms and stuff, that they are literally one button press away from changing the whole sort of vibe that people have of drivers. Like Hadjar, you can see, is visibly absolutely raging with himself. I don't think I've seen anyone so animated in a cockpit. It's like he's literally screaming in his helmet, just losing his mind. But if he doesn't press that team radio button, we're like, oh, well, he's a little bit annoyed. But as soon as he goes on the radio going, I'm this, I'm that, I'm bleep, 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 that's when we look into it more.
Well, Yuki Tsunoda's the perfect example when he first joined Formula One. And, it cost him, really, didn't it, Yuki? Because, it took an insane series of events for him to even get the Red Bull seat, even when he started delivering. So Hadjar, I'm sure he'll learn from it. Monaco's always going to be tough, but he's got the pace, which is the important thing.
So there you go. That is FP2 pretty much done and dusted. We're going to be live, aren't we, on YouTube and Twitch, Matt P1 Tommy. I mean, I'm going to be unbearable because I believe Charles Leclerc's going to win. You're going to be unbearable, Tommy, because you love Monaco more than anything in your entire
Saturday,
life.
oh my God, it's awesome.
So what could possibly be your final thoughts?
That I just cannot wait for the session, because I think it's more interesting than ever, isn't it? Because we've kind of gone into this race talking about this two-stop thing. Every person they've spoken to about it has kind of mentioned the word lottery and could be a bit of a headache for the strategists, and we're actually going to have to kind of calculate things on the fly and maybe go for something bold and crazy, and not just kind of blindly trust their computers and things. So I also am just so hyped for that. I'm really, really intrigued to see how this is going to go this weekend.
Right, thank you everybody for watching and listening. Can't wait for tomorrow, can't wait for Sunday. We'll see you live on our watch-alongs, or we'll see you here for our podcast. Lots of love, take care, bye!
Bye!
Charles Leclerc will win it all.